Howdy folks, DaveMan here, Rollman Revolution. The mainstream media, they are professional, pardon me there, turn off the police scanner there because the police scanner has been going off hot lately because we have a large problem with fentanyl here in the state of Florida. So I kind of listen in on the local frequencies to see kind of what's been going on in the area, and it's nonstop, especially at nighttime, because that's when the goons and the drug dealers are out and about. But no, there's a lot going on in the world right now. In particular, there's a lot going on with the lawfare presidency, everything that has to do with this next election of 2024. And if you're a person that doesn't really care for that kind of shit, and I get a lot of people out there are kind of just trying to get through the damn day, so they really don't have all the time, the patience, and I don't even know, the attention span to even bother with what's going on in Washington, D.C. And I get it. I truly do get it. Oh, the coffee pot finally went off. But the problem with it is that if you do nothing, and I've had this conversation with people that I've talked to here locally, but I also, you've heard me say this a million times over. If you do nothing, it can get inherently worse. And you can see the game plan and the people directly involved now. See, the one benefit of what has happened over the last 24, 48 hours with the vote to vacate the chair. Now, if you don't know what the hell that means, for the younger folks out there that kind of pick up on these videos, when they are talking about vacating the chair, they're talking about vacating the Speaker of the House. Now, right now, the United States Congress is favored in the Republican Party by 1 vote or something like that over the Democrats. So that usually means that you have a Republican Speaker. But the argument has been, and the facts of the case are undisputed at this point, that it does not matter whether you have an R or a D in front of your name anymore as a candidate. And let me get this out of here because it's really not doing anything. But yes, if you have an R or a D in front of your name, it doesn't mean anything. Now, it used to mean something. It used to mean that you stood on a certain type of core principles, right? You know, and those principles have changed throughout the decades. That's why I'm floored by people who, like my family I used to come from New York Democrats, okay? It's working class. My family lived in Long Island. They worked in Freeport, Belmore, all those areas, okay, which were, you know, getting your hands dirty, working class type people. And again, New York has always been a kind of a union type state. Democrats have pretty much kind of run the show in New York, but it was for a different reason. The problem with it is our thinking hasn't changed, even though the parties have. See, the R's and the D's don't mean anything anymore. And the reason when I say that kind of stuff is you can't distinguish the difference between what a Republican is and what a Democrat is. Now, most of the time today, Democrats are more communistic. They're about putting people in jars and labels. You know, they try to drive wedges between communities by pointing out the small differences rather than pointing out the vast similarities. See, the thing about this country, which makes it so great, is we have a large, diverse population, which comes from a variety of different cultural backgrounds, right? But the benefit of that is you get to incorporate your cultural backgrounds in the community and in your home, and be able to invite and participate in those activities in a country like this without being afraid of being persecuted religiously or whatever, because you're in a country that gives you that right to do so. But you can see what is happening now. This country, the only way this country really could get destroyed is from within. And you can see what's happening right now with the speakership and the vacating of the chair. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, MTG, okay, proposed a vacancy of the chair, which basically has to get a certain portion of the House to agree that this guy needs to go. Well, guess what happened? See, they had enough Republicans, but in order to save the speaker, who is a Republican, named Mikey Johnson from Louisiana, but in order to save him, he needed Democrat support. And that just goes to show you that it has nothing to do with party. This is an issue of us versus them. The establishment, bureaucracy, and when you hear those terms, all that means is these rich, out of touch companies, special interests, PAC, you name it, donate big dollars to your senators and representatives and get them on the take. So what ends up happening is your senators and representatives sell the country out in order to get kickbacks, earmarks, and all the benefits to the companies who put them in power to begin with, and put them into office to begin with. So the game, or they call it the game of Washington, is to go along, get along, the status quo, where they're basically stealing all of the American treasure, all of the tax money, and pissing it away or giving it to their friends so they can enrich their friends, and those friends can then in turn write a check to the campaign to get that guy or gal reelected again. So you see how the Ponzi scheme works in Washington? And all Donald Trump did was go up there and recognize, whoa, my God, this crap is corrupted. Yeah, we're not going to do that, we're not going to do that, and we're not going to do that. And by him just upsetting the status quo, which is the go along, get along thing in Washington, D.C., he pissed off a lot of people. And what that ended up doing was alarming this, what they call fourth branch of government, this deep state, this outside actors who actually are controlling the people we think are our representation. Okay, well, they called on the intelligence services to go after Donald Trump by any means necessary because he's not playing by the rules. He didn't take any of their money. He doesn't have, special interests or lobbying firms knocking at his door trying to give him money because he was already a wealthy man. And that made him very dangerous because now you have a guy in there who does not need your money, okay? Because all his job to do is get it right. It's not about being right, it's about getting it right. And that's what caught me on to Donald Trump from the beginning. See, I, in 2016, didn't care either way. I just thought it was going to be another charade, but I didn't know Donald Trump. Okay? Now, a lot of people on his team were saying, yeah, this guy's different, blah, blah, blah. But you've heard that before, right? But I noticed it within the first 100 days, actually within the first 3 weeks, that holy cow, you have a game changer here. You have something that is totally opposition to what's normal in that city. And now you can see why. Look, the only reason that Donald Trump is sitting in court is because he defends the people. And they can't have that. That's why this whole vacate the chair thing was very important. So for people out there, this young generation, I know it may sound boring and all of that stuff going on there, but those people are stealing your future. They're stealing your treasure. And if you want to be a slave, which you're pretty much already, you're killing yourself, you can't afford anything, right? It's only going to get inherently worse by doing nothing. So I'm asking you to just listen for a few more moments and pay attention, because the thing is that by us fighting amongst each other, okay, we get distracted while those people go up there and enrich themselves, spend all of the money, all of our tax money, give it to their friends, like I said before, and we end up having to pay it all back. Now, how mental is that, right? We're paying all of the debts that they write checks for. They don't have to pay it back. It's not their problem. But you can see the Democrats and the Republicans, like with this vote that just recently happened, and if you haven't looked into it, go look at the recent vote to vacate Mike Johnson from the Speaker's chair. And you can see a list of Republicans that voted not to do it, okay, and a list of Republicans that voted to do it. Now, they say that the Republican Party is divided, but it's not about that. Because I told you before, Republican and Democrat doesn't exist. It's establishment, people that are working against the American people, versus MAGA, which is the group of people that are trying to fight for Americans, American rights, and the sovereignty and stability of this nation. So you have people currently in office who are actively working against you, the person who put them there. Now, I know you say, oh, that's ridiculous. Look, is your life sucky right now? Do you see any relief in sight since this Biden whatever took over. I mean, it's a joke. The man can't complete a sentence, okay? His recent CNN interview was an absolute, I mean, I need an interpreter just to understand what the hell he is saying. Now, you think that man's going to be able to stand up and do an hour debate against Donald Trump? I don't care if you gave him double the dose of cognitive enhancers. It isn't going to work. That man shouldn't be there. And the only reason that they're putting that man there is because if they can steal enough votes and get enough illegal people in this country to actually vote in the election and overturn some stuff, they can puppet that son of a bitch up a little while longer, okay? Prop him up, he doesn't do any appearances anyway. He doesn't say anything, and when he does say something, he just repeats the same thing that he was told to say. So the point is that you're going to use him as a puppet like they already are, just so they can continue to push the agenda, which screws you over even further. So young folks, if you don't think that it matters, now is the time where it only matters, okay? And if you're not paying attention to what's going on here, I suggest you do so. And the reason why is because if you are uninformed, they're betting on that. They are betting on the fact that most Americans are not going to pay attention to what actually happened the other day with that recent vote. What that just did is unmasked and shows you that Republican and Democrat don't exist anymore. It's for the group or for the Ponzi scheme or not. You have a group of people in Congress that want to do the right thing, but they are pretty much told what to do. Now, you have a few that do still have a backbone and fight up against the opposition, but those people have campaigns and millions of dollars actively working against to try to get them kicked out of office. So you can see how this whole system is set up. It's set up in a way that if you don't play along with the Washington insider nonsense, you're going to get destroyed. Just listen to what Chuck Schumer said shortly after Donald Trump started challenging all of the stuff that was going on in Washington, D.C. He says something, I don't know, his Meet the Press or whatever it is. He goes, you start messing what's going on in here, the intelligence community has 6 different ways to Sunday to get back at you. And he wasn't lying. Look what they tried to do to Donald Trump. They friggin' faked an entire investigation and spied on his campaign and justified it by saying that he was related to some Russia collusion shit. It was all made up. And Hillary Clinton, his opponent, was the one who was directly involved with it. But she never got arrested. You never see her in a court system. But they're holding a guy in court right now, all right, over a misdemeanor in some stupid, stretched out, ridiculous, warped sense of the law to just tie him up in court to make him look, like he's this criminal guy. When he is not anything of the sort. The reason he's in court is because he represents you. And those people, the ones that just did that vote the other day, that saved the ass, who's financing all of the people who are putting Donald Trump in those court systems, it blows your mind. You think these people are on a team, but there's no team up there. A team is a group of people. Look, this is the warped sense of Washington, D.C. See, you think Republican, Democrat, this team, that team. It's not. It's not, because a team isn't defined by the parties that you're in. A team is defined by what it is you do, if you can be trusted. A team is not a group of people who work together. A team is a group of people who trust each other. And I dare to say that the majority of those people in Washington, D.C., trust anybody. They're always worried about whether or not, as I'm stabbing this guy in the back, somebody else is stabbing me. Now, what kind of cesspool environment is that to try to make the best country in the world better? It's not. You have a bunch of criminals protecting each other. See, they get in there because of all that special interest money. They rig the elections. They try to find any ways possible, get lawyers and lawfare to try to cause pressure against most people. And they put all this pressure because they know that most of the people who are, trying to just do their job, they don't have the legal funds to try to fight something, so they usually just give in and let them do whatever the hell they want to do, right? Strong-arming elections. And this kind of crap has been going on for a while because nobody's been paying attention. And then you wonder why we got the crap that we have. This whole thing stops when you make it stop. When you get directly involved and say, I've had enough. I really am concerned about what's going on there. Because if you don't know the people who are counting your votes, and you don't know who those people are, you don't trust them, look, the only thing we have in this country is that vote. And if we can't control the direction of the country by that vote, then we aren't in a republic. We're in a communist dictatorship who, whatever they say goes. Now they're trying to frame all of this stuff and say that's what Donald Trump is trying to do. Donald Trump is just saying, well, I just want to investigate and look at what the votes were. I want to see all the ballots, right? Because once you start looking, and that's the whole thing that happened around the 2020 election. Once you started looking, and you start digging, because I was involved in the 2000 election with the whole Chad situation. The more they started looking, the more they started finding more shit, okay? And it started getting more and more deeper, like, oh, this isn't good, this isn't good, this isn't good, right? 2020 election was the same thing, but it wasn't good in the way of the theft, because the more you started looking, they had to stop the counting. They had to figure out exactly how many ballots they needed to shove in those things in the middle of the night in those battleground states. That's why they shut everything down. Okay, you don't shut down a count. There's no reason to. They got plenty of poll workers there to operate that thing. And most of the time, like I said, I've worked in enough elections, you can get the count done in a certain district, even in a mega area, by the end of the evening. You have a generically good idea of the trends, because the trends don't change unless you have some foul play. Because usually the scales of how voters are going to go, you may have a little spike here and here, but you don't have ridiculous 2 a.m. spikes. That's the thing. This whole, if you were a person who still believes that the 2020 election wasn't manipulated, well, I'm sorry. You can see that it was manipulated, because just look at the characters you have leading us right now and the direction our country is gone. Look, they're letting the southern border wide open. There are 14 million plus illegal people from all the prisons and all of the places in the world just on a free-for-all. And Joe Biden and this administration is paying for it. They're taking your tax money to pay for these people to go into hotels or to get them a cell phone and set up and clothes and food. Meanwhile, you're struggling. You're working 2 jobs. I said, if you are at this point where you think it's you versus me, Democrat versus Republican, you've lost it. It's us, the people struggling, versus those who are selling everything that you and I have busted our asses our entire life to get. They're just giving it away and forcing us to pay for it. Look, there's a great unmasking that's going on. And the great unmasking you just saw the other day. That's the reason why, now more than ever, it's important to pay attention. It's important to know where to get good information. It's important to recognize the patterns before the pattern gets out of control. Now, if you don't realize by now that the people representing you don't have your best interest in heart, well, I got some beachfront properties to sell you. I got a bridge right across the street over here that's, I got the deed for it. Come meet me. This whole thing goes away, though, if you and I start to communicate again and get involved in the local communities. Like I said, you throw those letters away. You throw the boxes they put us into away. We're just people trying to make a decent living for our families so that we can provide a good life, a good education, and a good foundation for the next generation. Nobody's asking for too much. But those son of a bitches don't care. They're flushing the entire economy with these 14 million illegals to get cheap labor. Now, who else would want cheap labor except rich fat cats that don't want to pay you a living wage? Again, we can keep going over this. That's why I've said we're all on the same team here. And once you start to realize that, the gloves come off, we unite, we take back what's ours, and we send those son of a bitches packing. Many of them belong in front of a firing squad for selling the country out. We have treasonous actors in this country. And I'm sorry, justice is going to be served. What you have done to this nation and to a president who's sitting in a court right now is unacceptable. Unacceptable. I don't care if you were just doing your job or you were being told what to do, because, look, there's a lot of us that have been under a lot of pressure. A lot of us who've had to make a lot of decisions that we didn't want to have to make. And you're going to say that you were just doing your job? I couldn't. I'm sorry. Courage is contagious. So if you don't have the courage to turn in the people that are doing wrong against this nation, well, you're part of the problem. And we're coming for you too. Look, this all goes away when we start recognizing our role in this whole thing. The role that we have as Americans is to make sure that we set a better future for the people we are leaving this for. And we haven't done a great job thus far, but the tide is turning. People are waking up because people are all feeling this now. You can't avoid it. As far as I'm concerned, when you finally realize that the fight is between us and them, and that MAGA, this whole thing that you keep hearing on the mainstream, which is this radical, crazy, Christian, white extremist, it's all nonsense. Look, if you are still a person watching CNN, MSNBC, or one of those other flavor frickin' three-letter networks, please save yourself the brain damage, especially the morning shows. Oh my Lord. Oh my Lord. But that's what I'm saying. They just assume that you're so stupid that you're not going to be able to tell the difference between news and truth. And like I said, news, for the way it's presented today, is bullshit. We have an opportunity, America, to do the right thing for the right reasons this time as a country. Forget about those people. They're not going to do a damn thing. We just saw what they did by the vote they just casted. They don't care. Republicans and Democrats united to save the ass of a guy who's going all to the wall to try to make sure President Trump doesn't have an easy ride back to the White House. And he's setting up the Congress in a way such that if he does become president, he'll be pretty much impotent in being able to do anything because we won't be able to control anything in Congress because they've screwed it all up. Now, what kind of leadership does that? Because you're not hurting just the president, you're hurting the people you're representing. But these so-called leaders of yours don't care if they shit on you. That's what they do for a living. They live for that, which is why they have to be destroyed. Which is why they have to be taken out of office, which is why they need to be held up on charges for treason. Look, we have a lot to do from now until November 5th, and then on November 6th, it's only going to get more crazy because that's when the Mark Eliases of the world start coming out and start creating the problems that you saw last time. No, we're going to be ready this time. They're not going to be able to stop us. And in the end of this whole thing, when you look back on it, you're going to say, you know what? When everybody else decided to go run and hide, I acted. I stood up. And then I grabbed a whole bunch of other people and they stood up with me and we fought together for this nation. This might be the new Independence Day. We're fighting for it again. We're fighting for our freedom. We are fighting for a world that might be actually worth living in. Because right now, this is shit. And it's only getting worse by the day. And like I said, to the many young folks that catch this, it's your choice. You have a choice to enslave yourself or a choice to possibly free yourself. And it's going to hang in the balance. You are one of the keys because you're the future. You're going to be leading this country someday. So it's best to probably learn from the mistakes that these idiots have made today and start getting connected with people that only want to try to do what's best for you, the future, and the future of this country. All right, I hope to see you all out there. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to ramble on, but there's a lot of things that are just bothering me right now, and there's a lot of things that we could be doing more to try to make this a little bit better. I'm going to have some more videos come out later in the week, but in the meantime, just get out there, find your lane. Go into your local district. If you're not one of those people like getting involved in the Republican Party, that's fine. There are many different ways you can get involved. You can just stand out there on the sign with a Trump shirt or go to the beach or go to the local community, whatever it is, and draw attention to yourself to get people to get engaged in conversation. Because I think a lot of people want to have the conversation. They just don't know who they can have the conversation with anymore because they made an environment so toxic. This world's so toxic, you never know if you're going to offend somebody. I say, offend away. Because saying what's on your mind is what the freedom of speech is all about. You just have to do it in a tactful way. You know what that is. You know what we are expecting. You know what this country stands for. So go out there and preach the gospel of this great nation. Show them. Show the people that don't want to listen why they are only setting themselves up for their own demise. Show them the reality. Show them the numbers. Talk to them about there is no Democrat, there is no Republican. It's just us versus them. All right, my friends, fight on. I'll see you out there.